Those who know Berkeley, or have been to the North Side, may have seen one of the city's most cherished landmarks, the fountain at the Circle. Its waters in constant motion, this fountain anchors the center of a bustling roundabout where Marin Avenue begins its steep ascent toward the hills. Usually there is little time to stop and take it in, but if you have seen the fountain, you may have wondered, what is its story? And how did we all get so lucky to pass by something this beautiful? To answer this, we must go back in time, for it is the story of two fountains, one lost and one reborn. The origin of the Circle and the fountain date back to the 1910s, when North Bray was brand new. It was a residential land tract that had just been established on Berkeley's north side. In fact, the Circle and the fountain are connected to Berkeley's short-lived bid to become the state capital of California, a campaign that grew out of North Bray. The early decades of the 20th century were a time of confidence and optimism in Berkeley. After the earthquake of San Francisco, the number of Berkeley residents had more than tripled. Construction was booming, and the city was expanding in all directions. One of the new subdivisions was North Bray. Still largely open landscapes, with sweeping views of the bay, it had been acquired by Louis Titus, a local lawyer and investor, with the firm Mason & McDuffie in 1907. One of the first projects undertaken was a large traffic circle at the very site of today's Circle. Its purpose: to attract public transportation and secure North Bray's role in the city's evolving geography. However, the future traffic junction had barely materialized when Louis Titus came forward with an astounding proposal: moving California's state capital from Sacramento to Berkeley. With one eye on his investment, he went a step further and suggested building the government district nowhere else but on his property in North Bray. The traffic circle in particular was singled out to advance the campaign. John Galen Howard, supervising architect of the University of California, was commissioned to develop a concept, and he selected the site of the Circle, envisioned as a grand entryway for a future government district. For the time being, the plans were on paper only. To rally statewide support, streets in North Bray and around the Circle were given names of other California counties. Alas, it was not meant to be. In November 1908, California voters rejected the proposal. Sacramento remained the capital of California. Life returned back to normal. The traffic circle remained as it was, a large, partially developed intersection, with leveled ground and gravel roads. It would take another 3 years before it was finally completed. After the North Bray Tunnel had been cut through the land ridge below the Circle in 1911, nearly putting the Circle's existence into question, the decision was made to revisit John Galen Howard's earlier design concept. And now, the classical balustrades and stately proportions were built. This time as a North Bray improvement program. With the hilltop filled in again, the site now connected 2 elevation levels and 2 railway lines. Architectural details transformed the location into a beautiful transfer point. Scenic steps, today known as the Walk, were added so pedestrians could easily move between terraces. The last and crowning element was the fountain. Its unveiling in October 1911 drew a crowd of 2,000 spectators. Fed by natural spring water, the fountain, with Howard's stunning design, quickly became North Bray's most noted point of interest, attracting visitors from across town, creating an inviting place to stay a while, long before roads made it all too busy. Yet the design feature that most delighted residents, a group of young grizzly bears, came from another artist. They were the work of Arthur Putnam, an American sculptor and animalier. Putnam, a Bay Area resident, was admired for his love of nature and the simple life. He had closely studied the movements of animals, portrayed in a series of small bronzes. His bears on the fountain truly captured the spirit of California itself. Only months earlier, that same year, the bear had been adopted as the official symbol on the state flag. As North Bray began to fill in with streets and houses, the Putnam Fountain, as it would be known for a while, became deeply woven into everyday life of North Berkeley. One charming side note, sometimes overlooked, is that there were, for a time, other fountains in North Bray. The development company built 3 more fountains across the neighborhood. These other North Bray fountains were smaller and less elaborate. They do not exist anymore. They were dismantled decades ago. Recently, a new generation of urban historians confirmed their existence, bringing them back to public attention and restoring their place in the historical record.
Here, in particular, this circle is where the terrace fountain used to be. And there would be a big street island that would stretch at least this far and come out here and go around there. And the fountain was here. And actually there's one guy in the Friends of the Fountain Walk who said that as a kid he lived around here and he went to this fountain and pulled up the valve underneath it and actually turned it on and water still ran through it. So that was actually a pretty interesting story.
Hard as it may be to imagine today, there came a time when public fountains could no longer be sustained.
They scrapped the fountain and replaced it with a tree. Again, they just did not want to manage fountains back then. Today we have better fountain technology, but back then they got rid of them.
Even North Bray's glorious Putnam Fountain could not escape the same fate. After the Second World War, the world looked different. The fountain at the Circle had fallen into neglect. By the 1950s, the water had been shut off. The basin had sustained damage from passing traffic, and while it seemed only a matter of time, the end came swiftly and with force.
Sure. I can tell you about the destruction of the fountain.
Disaster struck on October 17th, 1957, when the fountain was destroyed in a car accident. A truck coming down Marin Avenue lost its brakes and crashed into the fountain.
And I was a freshman in college. I was home shaving, which I did about once a week at that time. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, there was a huge crash. And I ran outside. up to the circle, and there was like a 2.5-ton dump truck nosed into the fountain. It was full of asphalt roofing material, and there was a man in the truck. I don't think he was seriously injured, but he was hollering over and over again, "Jesus, Jesus." And of course, the fire department was on the way. Quite a crowd grew up around the circle. There wasn't anything we could do. He was totally squashed in the cab. I don't know how they got him out, but that was pretty much the story.
Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured. And with that, the original fountain of 1911 was gone. No effort was made to rebuild. For almost 40 years, the center island would remain empty from 1957 until 1996, with shrubs growing in the middle. Berkeley residents came and went without ever experiencing the traffic circle as it had once been, now diminished to a strange, slightly out of place intersection, a traffic obstacle, perhaps. Then, in the 1990s, something changed. A group of neighbors refused to let the memory die. Calling themselves the Friends of the Fountain and Walk, they asked a simple question: why not bring it back? 40 years of slumber were about to end. The reconstruction drew on the efforts of many Berkeley residents. Among them, several members of the group take us back to those years.
My name is Sarah Holmes. I'm one of the many people that was involved in reconstructing the fountain that was at the Circle in North Berkeley.
Starting in 1993, the neighborhood group searched archives, raised funds, and brought volunteers together. At first, work focused on the walk and balustrades. They were cleaned, repaired, and gradually improved.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 years?
I would say 3 years. We had to spend all that time simply finding the plans, and then they went to the Bancroft or the library there, and then we then started with the process of deciding what to put in there. And I think I was thinking the more practical and quick way of doing it is to find an existing kind of a fountain that we could put in there. I didn't have it in my mind necessarily of reproducing, and I think it took them a little while to convince me to let's see what we could do. But then it took all this research and piecing it all together, and then they found the original plans up there at the library.
At the Bancroft Library?
Yeah. And so, my God, but you could just see, I mean, where are you going to get the money to reproduce this beautiful, beautiful historical monument? So we were drinking away. We had our gin and tonics, and I guess I was sort of filled with myself. And I said, well, we ought to see about that fountain. I had no idea. Had no idea what the hell it was. And that started the ball rolling. And we got in touch with Shirley Dean, the mayor, and said to Shirley, how could you help us on this ambitious program that we had?
The city of Berkeley approved and supported the project. As word spread through the community, donations began to come in.
And after that was in the early 90s, we had to collect the money because this was the largest grassroots project in history of Berkeley. So we needed money. No one was going to fund us. So I went door to door to over 300 houses myself with a flyer, and over a few years we collected over $100,000, and that was enough to allow us to have it fabricated, the fountain and its parts, in Newark at Dura Artstone. They're no longer located there.
The project was made official at a meeting at the community center of North Bray Church, which stands today at the site once intended for the state capitol.
So we went to this meeting and they asked for volunteers. My recollection is the money poured in because people were tired of that silly looking circle with the junipers that had half were dying. And so they were very interested in contributing to the fountain.
As repair work stepped up, a mock-up was created to help imagine the shape of the fountain. Volunteers dedicated themselves to following John Galen Howard's original design as closely as possible. But there was another challenge. Who would recreate the grizzly bears? It seemed the fountain would have to return without them. Then, a local sculptor stepped forward. By studying photographs of Putnam's surviving works, she brought the grizzly cubs back to life.
So anyway, I called the phone number and asked them what they were doing, and they said they were doing the fountain, and I said, well, who's doing the bears? And they said, well, we don't have enough money to do the bears. Oh. I said, well, I'll do the bears for free. They were sort of surprised and wanted to see my work, so I took them to my studio in Oakland and showed them around and showed them a few animals I had done, and they liked what they saw, and so and I began to work, and there were no drawings extant that anybody knew of about the size of the fountain. Putnam was a really good sculptor. And so when I did mine, I had to adopt the same stance because that stance is architectural elements. And doing that, I learned a couple of interesting things. Of course, the bears are identical. And he was clever enough to make one paw like this and one paw like this. One is curled and one is open. Every other one. So when you look at the bears, you don't see kind of a boring repetition. You see kind of change. And I think the ears in my bears are a bit bigger and the nose might be a little bit longer. The effect it had on me was actually, I realized that after they were in, I felt an emotion in their faces. But they were watchdogs, I think. I think that they're waiting there to show you something, maybe.
The preparations had paid off. 1996 would become the year of the fountain's return. Having watched the fountain rise again, the neighborhood felt growing excitement.
It's like, well, you can shoot water up, or you can drip water down, or you can kind of shoot it side to side, or you can spill it over something, or you can, have subterranean water. So there's a lot of things you can do. It's the flow of water is fascinating.
On September 15th, 1996. The big day had come. The inauguration of the second fountain at the Circle was a celebration for all of Berkeley. When the water turned on, a cheer rose from the crowd. The fountain had taken its place at the Circle again. Bringing joy and delight, it has remained that way ever since. In 2026, the fountain marks 30 years back at the Circle, once again bringing beauty to daily life in North Berkeley. Protective rails now guard it, and regular maintenance keeps the Circle intact. Natural spring water is gone, but a modern system operates under strict water conservation guidelines. Volunteers are always welcome. And perhaps, the next time drivers pass through, they may slow down or take one extra turn, simply to watch the water flow.